Welcome to the Beckoning Brothers Afternoon Tea podcast with myself, Scott, and the producer of a regular Reckoning Brothers show, Josh. This is Barry's Irish breakfast tea right here. And if there is a God, at some point we will get them as a sponsor for this.
It's a
Cheers.
nasty.
I'm drinking it. Are you drinking it right now? Even
I'm
if you're
drinking
not
coffee.
lying, say you are.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I certainly am.
It's coffee time for me still. I know you're
Understandable.
you're on the West Coast and it's quite a bit earlier for you than it is here in Ohio, but I slept in a little bit and need some coffee.
There you go, man. It's a little after 8 o'clock. I've been up for 4 hours.
Hmm.
So
Why?
Josh, I get up early, man. I don't know.
Okay.
Josh, question for you.
Shoot.
All right. So here's something I can't figure out. When do you have enough knowledge to be able to be taken seriously when you weigh in on a public topic? I.e., one of the most controversial topics right now is Israel in Palestine, right? A lot of people talk about it. A lot of people are weighing in on it. When I try to research this shit, there's so much information, there's so much history, there's so many actual smart, intelligent, well read, well researched on the subject people disagreeing that have spent their lives looking into this issue. But yet, I feel like I have a right after, I don't know, X number of hours of research, 100 hours or something like that, to say something. But then in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't know shit. All I know is this is fucking complicated, and there's no easy answers. But yet we see lots of people with hardcore, emotionally driven opinions. Where do you have to write a book about it? What do you think?
I think I don't know. There's no percentage that one can advertise. Say I know 97% about this particular issue.
Yeah,
So it's hard to quantify, really.
it's so ethereal, but practically, we kind of have to decide who we're going to listen to, who's worth listening to, and who's just, the drunk uncle at Thanksgiving running their mouths who doesn't know what they're talking about, you
Right.
know? So we're still kind of making that decision in our mind when we talk to someone. And I just want to know in my head, when do I cancel a person out? Because I do it. We all do it, right? You've got to have people in your personal life that are just way in on this issue. Or is there another issue you can think of that's similar? War is
Uh,
always like that. Ukraine.
yeah, but it's. I think a lot of it is broadcast ideologies. We talked about trickle down effects before,
Yup.
and what is within your personal belief system is
Mhm.
brought down from the top. So if MSNBC is broadcasting something and they have a particular opinion about it, that automatically becomes your personal default. I think
Mhm.
a lot of that is, and we kind of touched on a little bit about Mangione, that the thing that's happening right now is some people are applauding it.
Yeah.
Outright murder. They're
Yeah.
applauding it because somewhere up top somebody said that's a good idea and it's broadcasted
It's
down.
just working its way down. So it's
Yeah,
almost like their level of knowledge is almost irrelevant. A
it's
lot of people
inherent.
are just, yeah, they're just parroting something that they've heard from the top down, and they're always going to do that.
Yeah,
So it's.
we're
I
we're
guess it's,
sheep.
yeah, yeah. In that sense, is this person an independent thinker that I'm listening to, or is this person, a sheeple ideologue that's just parroting information?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that, I mean
that's probably
that's the
more the
way
calculus right
it's
there.
the free Palestine kind of thing.
Yeah,
That's left leaning. So
yeah.
I don't know, when you get to a point where you have a certain amount of information that you've retained, should you advertise it? Should you? I mean, they probably do on a book cover or something like that. PhD and blah blah blah. So
Well, the thing about that issue is you've got people that know a shit ton that are either hardcore pro-Israel or hardcore Palestinian, or in some kind of rational middle. they can't all be true, really, in that sense. I mean, they can. You can see things from a narrow lens, and so therefore everything is, pro-Palestinian because you're just seeing it through this. Israel shouldn't exist. Blah 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 blah. You're just seeing it through that, or you could see it through the Israel just hardcore pro-Western civilization lens, where this is the ultimate good. We need to destroy these bad ideas. And if it's costs some innocent lives, that's the cost of war. There's arguments that can be made strong in any of these, but I think really if you look into any of these issues, any war related issue, it's just war is just bad. There's nothing's good. Yeah, I heard Ben Shapiro talking, um, who's the Daily Wire's going downhill, man. They're starting to become embarrassing, I think, but that's a separate topic.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Everything is race. They're almost like a woke right kind of thing now, and it's
See,
change
I've
the
noticed
subject,
that.
but
I've noticed that with the last couple of movies they've produced, it's really kind of extreme in the opposite direction.
yeah,
E-
it's in Matt Walsh. I saw
The
a tweet of
transform.
his. He was talking about the whole Luigi Mangione assassination thing, and he was just basically making a point that if the CEO was a black female, that but the left wouldn't have the opinion that they did. Da 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 da. It's like, okay, I get what you're trying to say, but this is not about race, dude. You're throwing it in there. Race has absolutely nothing to do with this. Zero.
Yeah,
And it's just like, when you're throwing this in, man, are you trying to get your hate clicks? Is that what you are now? Are you
I
are
think
you
a little
Vice
bit.
5 years ago, where it doesn't matter if the clicks are pro or con, you just need a fucking click?
Yeah.
Eh,
So let me ask you a question. This is completely off the topic, but it just kind of struck me. I know Mangione's name. You know Mangione's name. Do you know the name of the CEO he killed? Because I
I
don't
can't
know.
remember the guy's name. No, no, I remember as
I
the CEO of United Healthcare. I heard his name 10 to 20 times, but I can't remember it
right. So why are we remembering the killer's name? Because he's being
because there's
broadcast.
this. I think it's because it's his broadcast, but it's also because there's a story there that's just kind of
Yeah.
a more interesting story. The CEO guy, I mean, I know that he came from nothing. His dad was a grain elevator operator, and he worked his way up through the system to become CEO of United Healthcare, and that's fucking amazing. Everyone liked him. Apparently, he was really well liked. He had a family. He was well loved. Like, people thought very highly of him. I know that, but I can't remember the guy's name because that's kind of a boring story. I mean, good for him. That's awesome. He accomplished all that, and it's horrible what happened to him. It's horrible. His family had to go through it. But the Luigi Mangione thing, it's a weird story. His manifesto was weirdly
Yeah.
rational, for lack of a better term, but yet he's a rich kid and kind of all over the place, and it's kind of like he just snapped. It's just weird. It doesn't fit into like a groove, a path that you would expect. So it just makes it just
A,
odd.
a killer pattern. Yes.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. It's like what makes a good news story, you know,
I'd be remiss if we didn't
novelty.
educate our virtual audience that we hope to have one day. But it's Brian Thompson.
Okay, that's what it is. Okay, that's going to save me from having to look it up and put it on text on the bottom when I edit later. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that. But yeah, yeah.
Back
For
to
the future
knowing
audience,
about things, I don't know how to quantify that, how to give a percentage, how to tell your tell people that about this particular topic, and
yeah.
and so yeah.
Well, when I was thinking of the question, I thought of it like for me to tell myself, when do I have a right to be like, hey, look, man, I think you might be thinking of this a little too narrowly, and maybe there's some more information that I don't think you have, probably, but if you know this piece of information, it might help you, have a more kind of nuanced, a little bit more chilled opinion on this subject.
That's interesting, but not a lot of people have that kind of self control.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, well, it goes back to what you were saying, trickle down ideologue type of people. It just kind of doesn't matter, and that's a whole nother subject, but an interesting one of how do you kind of help change people's minds when you feel like they become way too far off in one direction and way too much of an ideologue.
And they become
That's something
entrenched.
that we should talk about. There's a book
Yeah.
that Peter Boghossian wrote, I think with James Lindsay. about how to change someone's mind. I'll find it and post a picture of. But that's one of those. I don't know about you, man, but I got most of my books on Audible. I've listened to the whole thing, but there are a handful of ones where I made it through like 10 minutes. And I'm like, I can't listen to this right now. That was one of those books, and I've never gone back to.
I've got a few of those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's most. I usually have this self discipline, like okay, just listen to this whole thing. Some of them, man, it's just like oh, it's so fucking boring.
So another completely off topic. When you listen to an Audible book, do you consider yourself as you've read the book?
Yeah, I used to not. Now I do because
Okay.
it's like because I don't want to give anyone the ammunition that's like, oh, the only way to read a book is like to sit down and read a book. Well, like fuck you, bitch. I got dishes to do, so I'm gonna listen to it, and maybe I might retain slightly less. But for me, I think I lose the same amount of information, roughly speaking, when I read something as to when I listen to it.
I think I
But
lose.
but I don't know if you do this. There's different levels of listening. Like when you're driving in the car, I don't think you should listen to an audiobook unless maybe I don't know. Maybe there's certain caveats where you can, but I think most of the time maybe it should be like a loose podcast because you're driving, you're not really focusing. Doing light chores or just sitting there, I think is a different thing, and you can listen to something more in depth. Like doing the dishes or cleaning. I can when I'm cleaning, I can 100% listen and comprehend an audiobook, right?
I disagree. Driving for me
Mhm.
is the best time. Uh,
Really?
yes.
You
My
feel you
last.
retain it and retain the
Yeah.
information too?
Yeah. Yeah. My last trip.
Really? Okay.
Uh, my wife and I drove to Missouri. We rented an RV and we listened to a Stephen King book. And we're still not done with it because it's really freaking long.
Yeah, it's Stephen
He
King. That
always
makes sense.
publishes 900 pages at a time. But Fairy Tale, by the way, good book. It's good.
Hmm.
But yeah, I feel like I can visualize better when I'm just entranced driving. It,
Okay.
it may not be the safest, but I feel
Mm.
like I get it better. Light chores, doing stuff like that. I can't focus on stuff in small spurts. Like I want to be able to have a
Yeah,
lengthy
agreed.
time.
Yeah.
We also, we're still trying to finish this book, and we were sitting out on the porch, and we'll listen to it while we're sitting out on the porch and chilling, that kind of thing.
When
If we
you
can't,
also you don't have to drive in Los Angeles, so that's
well,
probably
yeah,
very
that's
good
true. I'm driving
for that.
70 westbound for 14 hours, so if we can't dedicate an hour to it, we won't resume it.
Yeah, there's no point. No, agreed 100%. When that's what like podcasts are for.
Yeah,
When you got this 20 or 30 minutes,
yeah,
But yeah, a book you got to kind of get into the zone. In,
and
th- in that sense, an audiobook and a visual reading of a book, I think, are the same. Like, I
yeah,
wouldn't sit down and try to read a book for 20 minutes, right?
he calls it
Maybe
mind.
more so than listen, but still, it just doesn't seem like enough time to zone in.
Yeah,
You
Dude,
got to get your brain into that phase of, okay, I'm listening to this. I need to get interested in this. I need to retain this
right.
information. Yeah. Yeah, no, totally, totally, totally.
We got way
Now,
off topic.
this is a great example of how to meander completely off the original topic.
But I will say, with this particular topic, I moved all my stuff around. Um, I think you and I can say we know a lot about Audible books.
Yes. Yes. And I think if someone's saying something ignorant about Audible books, we can, chime in
We,
and be like, hey, look, you fucking visual purist scum. It is worth listening to
I will say,
audiobooks.
I buy books on paper after Audible if I really enjoy them. So,
Okay.
and I will flip to that main page or that page that I want to reread or something like that. Yeah,
Best of both worlds. Best of
yeah.
both worlds right there.
There's nothing like the tactile feel. You know what I mean? Of the paper,
I
the
I
smell.
agree with you. Here's my one thing I'm gonna go before we leave here, go on my little anti hipster rant.
Oh,
I agree. But my second job, I worked at a place that sold record needles when I was a teenager. And I would have these hipster fucks come in and just always talking about how much better the sound quality is from a record player which they're right. But in order to get to that point, you actually have to spend a lot of money and have a really good setup. And then you get into pulse code modulation with CDs. Da 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 da. This is back in the '90s. But for the most part, they're full of shit. They're buying cheap ass record needles. You're not going to reproduce anything like digital sound quality with that. You have to have some hundreds of dollars in '90s money, Bang& Olufsen
A
setup or
lot.
something
Yeah.
like that to be able to reach that quality. So many people were just saying this because it was trendy and they were full of shit, and hipsters, that was really big back then. And
Let me
whenever
add
I hear
on.
like tactile feel, it's like it puts, and this is I'm not saying this to belittle you. This is my problem. I shouldn't put that in the same category, but I always do, and I always think, oh god, these fucking hipsters with their goddamn record needles.
I,
But
I'm,
anyways,
I'm going to say another thing, and I'm going to think that another job that you had at a camera store probably had some of that too.
oh
You
yeah,
had the
100%,
camera
100%. People
period.
that would refuse to do digital and just everything, they go in there buying their darkroom supplies. A lot of them were students though, so it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you give them a little bit more leeway there. But yeah, and at that time digital really hadn't quite caught up, because you still had, 1, 2 megapixel cameras. But really, in the end, when it comes to photography, the quality of your lens and stuff like that is really what makes a bigger difference. Now it's a little bit different because you can go in and digitally edit everything. AI, it's really hard to make that case. But back then, yeah, you really had to have, the right lenses, the right lighting, the right know-how is what's going to get you the better picture. Now you can fucking digitally change anything that you want. It's a
Yeah.
different world,
Or just have
but
AI for you.
just have AI make it for you. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Well, hell, man, let's do a tea cheers. Call it a call it a morning.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have to revisit this
Yeah.
maybe with Mark.
For sure.
All right, man. Later.
Later.